You're listening to New England Real Estate Journal Radio with Rick Kaplan, New England source for commercial real estate news. This is New England Real Estate Journal Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal Radio Show. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and I would like to thank our sponsors for the show, which is the City of Hartford, Connecticut, and all their projects that they're going on, that they have going on in the city. I also would like to thank the City of Warwick, Rhode Island, where they have had a lot of projects that have gone on and have continued to have more projects. Also, New England Restaurant Brokers, and I think that's it.
Sounds good.
And I would like to also mention November 19th at the City of Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford, Connecticut is our platinum sponsor for Cocktails and Conversation at the Hilton in Hartford. And we have our gold sponsor, Eldorado Stone. Silver sponsor is Bradley Development League. Our bronze sponsors are Security Specialist and BuckerPlan.com. BuckerPlan, a previous guest of ours.
Yeah.
Also Eldorado Stone, a previous guest. And the City of Hartford, Connecticut, a previous guest.
So who's not? We should get him on the show.
And
have
I know
previous guests.
And also, you can meet all the Commercial Real Estate Association leadership of 2014 from BOMA, Metro Hartford Alliance, Connecticut CCIM, NAOP,
NAOP,
Connecticut, and New York, IREM, Connecticut, CREW, Connecticut, CBC, and CEDIS, and SIOR.
It's funny that we actually have to say IREM, Connecticut, or NAOP, Connecticut. It's in Connecticut.
Of them,
but our listeners are all of New England, so we have to.
And some of the associations are like they'll handle all of New England.
Right. Like a Coronet New England, or CCIM New England, SIOR New England.
Exactly.
Right.
One of the other things.
It's going to be a great event, though, so I hope everyone
it is going to be a great event. And also save the date, January 29th, at the Hyatt Regency in Boston. We'll have another NEREJ, Cocktails and Conversations, second annual.
Yeah, it'll be a second time coming into Boston. That'll be a lot of fun. And last year it set up our whole 2014 event.
That's right.
Series.
It was a big success, and I think this year it's going to be even bigger.
Right.
We also we are going to be speaking this week.
I know, how crazy is that?
At the the New York City Real Estate Expo. Yeah. We're going to be speaking this week. So we'll tell you all about it next week.
Yeah, or how it went, and what the turnout was.
Yeah, and if most people don't know, we do a New York Real Estate Journal show.
Yeah, we do a podcast for that. You can find that on nyrej.com. And
Eric, I did all the talking.
You did. I was gonna touch upon more about what we do in New York City. Is they reached out to us about our radio podcast and asked us if we would want to talk about that. At first, you and I both thought they wanted us to bring the radio show down there to do a podcast live from the show, but he wanted to talk to us about how podcasting can help other businesses. So we said sure, and then now we're going to go down there. We'll do a 30-minute presentation on. And we gave it a nice title, Traditional Marketing, Enhancing Your Digital Marketing. But more along the lines is how is podcasts, how our YouTube channel has helped our newspaper and helped us achieve goals through repurposing traditional marketing methods.
It's almost a form of self-promotion.
It is. It very much is.
And, that's what people don't really understand. Self-promotion is probably the best way of branding. Because if people know you're promoting your company constantly, your company name, you're promoting your face.
Right.
Yeah, people put that stuff together.
I think
it makes they make a connection with you.
Right. It's easier for them to, if you can share your story, it's easier for them to have an emotional tie-in. I would say that that's a fine line, though, on self-promotion. Sometimes it's too much if you're doing it at like a networking event.
It's...
if you're in a networking event, yes. I think that more on the lines is...
But you don't want to overdo it, but you have to You have to do it.
You have to. I mean, no one's going to be able to talk about your company the way that you can.
Right.
So you have to be able to do that. I do think that, though, with the way... It's more about integrated marketing. Being able to use and how traditional marketing is not dead because simply you still watch TV, you still listen to us on the radio, you still see.
Well, we hope they still.
Yeah, right. You still see billboards when you drive down the highway. You still get pamphlets handed out to you when you walk through Boston, down Newbury Street, or through Cambridge. So traditional marketing still works. It still resonates with everyone. Digital marketing, people are saying that all the traditional is dying, but obviously it's not the case. As you can see, a new tech net. Well, this big announcement yesterday from CNN that they're going to do a tech. This tech company is now going to do a print edition. And
and every marketing company that we've ever talked with, they all say the same thing. That even though there's all these new digital ways to market your products, you still have to have that traditional, either a newspaper or a magazine.
Well, I think that because it has staying power. I don't think so far yet that the digital marketing has staying power. I think people say, well, it's inexpensive. It's for a smaller budget, you can get more out of it. It's not necessarily true. A newspaper, a magazine stays on your desk until you get rid of it. So you can always go back through it. But for websites or web stories, you read those and you may never go back. You're constantly just digesting. And how long does that resonate with you? If you watched, just using TV as a reference, if you watched 16 different 30-minute programs, how many of those do you remember when you're all said and done? Right. But if you and it goes away forever. But if you had that and you could always go back to it like on a DVR, the second time through, the third time through, the fourth time through, things tend to resonate more and you stay top of mind.
But you also, and that goes back to the self-promotion, because it also is when you are putting your name and your company name out there all the time, and then you have some type of, even let's say a billboard or a magazine or anything like that, someone sees that, their eyes sort of are drawn to your logo or your picture because they recognize it.
Right.
They recognize that name.
With that recognition, and if you see something like Facebook or their website, 60% of all online traffic is driven from offline, inquiries, whether it be, I saw a billboard, I want to know more about that company, let me go online, Google them, whether they, and then or just go straight to their URL,
Yeah, but I think it's also the if you have a magazine or a trade journal or a newspaper that is specific.
Yeah, industry specific.
Industry, or even like a sports magazine or an industry magazine. It's specific to a certain thing. Those are things that people will hold on to.
Right.
Because there's the articles and the stories or pictures or whatever they're looking for will always be in there.
Right. And I also think it's basically a book of leads. Every time a new newspaper comes to you and every time a new magazine comes to you, not only is those who are content marketing now leads for you, but so is those who advertise,
I agree.
So I think
you sold me.
Yeah, well, you don't necessarily have a collection of advertisements or leads through digital other than through search engines and that type of trying to list gathering. Where every week we deliver a book of leads right to your front door, and it comes in and you can yellow stick it, cut it out, or whatever. But we're going to talk about a lot of that and more down in New York City, and next week we'll touch upon the reaction.
Well, I think also in our industry, commercial real estate, it's very important to be branding your name as well as your face,
right,
and your personal name, not just your company name.
Definitely,
because people want to deal with certain people.
Yep.
And they see your face, they know, this guy, this is what he does.
Right. I definitely. I think.
I think it is important in the commercial real estate industry.
Yeah, it's definitely personal.
Even residential, I would say.
Anything that where a transaction isn't constant, something that commercial real estate industry, people may only get, 10 jobs a year, 5 jobs a year, 3 jobs a year. So there's a lot of downtime between those. So you have to be able to stay top of mind all the way until that person actually needs you, which could be 6 months.
Right.
So that then when they were ready to make a decision, you're top of mind over anybody else. So you're competing, could be 6 months.
Well, we have to go to a break, but we're going to come back. We're going to be interviewing with Charlie Spies. He is the CEO of CEI Capital Management, and he's got some interesting concepts how they work. We'll speaking with him in a few minutes. One thing before we do go to the break, I also want to send out my condolences to the Menino family. Mayor Menino was probably the best mayor, and he was the people's mayor of Boston for about 20 years. And he did a fantastic job, and the city of Boston is a lot to show from all of his hard work.
Definitely.
And we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
The next level in commercial real estate. This is New England Real Estate Radio on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com. Rick Kaplan on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we have sitting right next to us is Charlie Spies. He is the CEO of CEI Capital Management. A lot of C's in there.
Yes.
So tell us, Charlie, what is CEI Capital Management all about?
Well, CEI Capital Management we're based out of Portland, Maine, but we work nationally, and we have a high concentration of business in New England. We're a subsidiary of Coastal Enterprises, or CEI, and Coastal was founded in 1977. I grew out of the Civil Rights Movement, and it works on what we call a triple bottom line. It looks at how to make economic transactions that make sense, but also how can you support social equity, especially people in low income in their lives or in their communities, and also environmental sustainability. So we take that mission, and we've applied it to what's called the New Markets Tax Credit Program, which is a federal program that allows for investment by private capital. It moves private capital, but it targets it at low-income areas across the country. And our focus has been on to carry out this triple bottom line mission, and we grew up doing a lot of rural work in Maine, and we work rurally around the country, but we've also done projects in Boston and Worcester, other places across New England, to try and get capital into these communities, to create jobs, and help diversify those communities for the long term.
What is the New Market Tax Credits Program?
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair question. It started in 2000. It was one of the last bills that President Clinton signed. But it's been supported by then his successor, President Bush, and other presidents have always been supportive, and it's supported actually on both sides of the aisle in Congress. It provides a tax credit of up to 39% of the qualified investment for the investors in the program, and then that capital is used. They'll essentially invest in that company, knowing they're going to get the tax credit, and then that creates a low-cost form of capital to the borrower, to the business that is receiving the money. So in a nutshell, what it does for real estate developers, if you think about it, is it provides in the capital stack, if you will, some subordinated low-cost capital. For the businesses in those communities, it provides capital that otherwise wouldn't be there without the New Markets Tax Credit to allow them to go forward where they otherwise couldn't.
So do you have, when you go into a project, you're going to offer the existing businesses and property owners in that area this low interest, this tax loan
Tax
discount?
credit, yeah. Let me just step back a little bit. The tax credit itself is targeted at low-income communities, as I mentioned, and that's done with a formula using census data. You can only make these types of investments in census tracts that have a poverty rate of 20% or a median family income of less than 80%. So you know if a project is located in one of those areas, then perhaps it does qualify. And then we look at, first of all, is it economically viable, and then some of these other things. So we end up working with, very often we'll work with other entities like ourselves that know about a project, perhaps in Worcester or in Brattleboro, Vermont, and then we'll start to get to know whoever the developer is and the business person is, and then we start to help form how that can come together as a new markets tax credit project. So we're one piece of a puzzle.
So if you had a developer that wanted to put up let's say a hotel in an area, but it's not in the best of areas. Now the surrounding part of that whole development is probably, run down. How does that affect that area? How do you make that tax credit work for all the others around that area?
That's a great question. The new markets tax credit program itself is very flexible. It could go into hotels. It can go into, say, an old textile mill on a river. You've all seen those that's abandoned. You can help repurpose those. We also work with food production, those kinds of things. So as you said, it's a challenged area, I think was the term you used. That's where the new markets can help drive investment because it helps limit some of the risk for investors and then get these projects done. So you mentioned hotels. I'll give you 2 examples. We worked on a hotel in northern Maine, up in Presque Isle, Maine, which is 5 hours north of the Maine border. It's a long ways up there. We helped these developers put in a Hampton Inn, but it's the first flagged hotel north of Bangor. It's the first flagged hotel within 2 hours of the border of the U.S. And it's was something that hadn't happened up there before. So we were able to work in that low-income area and get that hotel put in, and it's been fully utilized for the businesses in the surrounding area since its inception. Another example is a hotel in Concord, New Hampshire. And in that case, we worked with Lutheran Social Services, which is a local community outreach group there. And they have a high first migration from Bhutanese populations and others into Concord. They're like a first stop in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And we saw that, well, the hotel would be helpful, but there's other things we can do in that community. And we worked with Lutheran Social Services to create a job training program so that this population could be prepared to take those kind of jobs and also jobs in the health industry. Their hiring rate went from 15% to 85% because really they were good workers. They're
That's
smart.
A tremendous jump.
Yeah, but they just needed the social kind of to fit into this society. They just needed how to get through an interview. So those are ways that we were able to look at the project, but then also look at the broader community needs.
So is it just the tax benefit that drives it? Like you said, a hotel. Is it just that tax incentive that's driving them to go to an area where they basically have no idea if this is going to be a moneymaker for them?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, let me be clear. We do
due diligence.
We do due diligence on the front end. You have to. It's part of that triple bottom line. If we're helping money flow into a project that's not going to work, we're not helping anybody. But then we also look at, because of our mission, what is the social equity? What are those needs in that community? And then what's the environmental sustainability? So investors can look at a project and say, this is really too expensive, we can't afford that the new markets tax credit can help lower that cost, or there's too much risk, we would be willing to be part of this, but we can't take the whole picture, and the new markets comes in and helps subsidize that. And then what we look at as an intermediary here, pulling this together, is how can we help? And if you don't mind, I'll give you another example. We worked with a paper mill in Washington County, Maine. The industry in Maine is challenged. This mill sees a future in putting in tissue machines because there's still a high demand for tissue. And so we helped work with that company to make that capital investment in a risky industry. And the new markets piece came in and was kind of the linchpin that helped it move forward. We also, in that case, we were able to replicate that job training kind of work in Washington County, which is one of the poorest counties in Maine. And they just entered their first class of 40 people to train for those potential jobs on those tissue machines.
That brings me to 2 questions that I have on the environmental sustainability is one, and schools. Can schools use this new market tax programs to benefit, whether it be like maybe an inner city school that could use lower prices so they could reinvest that money in teachers and books and things like that?
I lost your first question, but I'll answer your second one.
Nice.
There are allocatees, as we're called, that work in this world that do work with charter schools and things like
Okay.
that. And we've also worked on repurposing buildings in Buffalo and other places where you can reduce the cost of occupancy for daycares and things like that. Putting it directly into a municipal project is typically, these are designed to go into private sector
Okay.
projects, so that's typically the way it works, but we can be associated and help those things. I'll also, in terms of the green, that was your first question.
Right. My first question is, what is environmental sustainability when you mention it?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to measure that, as you can imagine. But if you think of LEED buildings, LEED green standards
Right.
in a building, another example is we worked right over in Greenfield, Massachusetts. It's called Axio Green. And we worked there. They put a solar array on top of what was a capped landfill. And then we worked with the community college over there with their workforce training programs to help with understanding how that industry works and how you can do more of those types of things. So we're producing 2 megawatts of solar energy on top of a capped landfill, but also have this relationship with Greenfield Community
So it's
College.
more, you work, basically, it's not just for a building or development. You're working with any type of a land project, whether it's you said a landfill.
Yeah, it could. There's a lot of different ways, as I mentioned, you can use the new markets tax credit. Most of the time, you're looking at some kind of structure because the assets, the investment has to stay in that low-income community for the 7-year tax credit period. It's pretty hard to move a building. It's
Right.
much harder to do things like equipment and rolling stock, but there are a lot of creative ways within. So you're not going to move a solar array in 7 years.
Right.
You're not going to move a redeveloped textile mill in Claremont, New Hampshire
Right.
in 7 years. So very often they're going into those types of projects.
But you're not all just doing a development inside the inner city. You're also doing job creation. You're also like you said, social equity. How long have you been doing this?
Well,
Since 2000, since its inception?
yes, we started, our parent entity started in 77. The New Markets was voted in 2000, and then the first deals started in 2004. So this is a new industry.
Yeah, right.
We did our first deal in 2004, and we've been at it ever since. I've been here for 8 years now, and we've been able to grow to 758 million in New Market, or I'm sorry, 582 million is what we managed, but we've placed 758 million altogether. And as I said earlier, we in Maine developed some expertise around rural areas, wood products, fisheries, agriculture. And we've been able to take that and work nationally. But within New England, we've worked both in metro and non-metro environments, always with the idea of the first bottom line has got to make economic sense. But then our role in our agreement, our contract with the Department of Treasury is to make sure that we enhance, to the extent we can, the opportunities for the low-income individuals in those communities.
Well, we have to go to a break right now, Charlie, but when we come back, I've got a very important question to ask you, and that's, where's the money come from?
Okay. Yeah.
And we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan and Eric Wilson, right here on the Money Matters Radio Network and online at moneymattersboston.com. New England Real Estate Journal Radio.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we're talking with Charlie Spies.
Yes.
I keep saying it right.
You got it right. That's great.
He's the CEO of CEI Capital Management, and one of the big questions that I wanted to ask is, where's all the money come from?
Okay, that's an obvious and a really good question. CEI is an intermediary here. What we do is compete nationally for new markets tax credit allocation. We compete with large banks, with other CEI-like entities. Last year, the last round, there were $3.5 billion in total allocation that was awarded by the Department of Treasury, and it was something like $19.5 billion in applications. So it's very competitive. As I mentioned earlier, we've managed to, at this point, raise $858 million through this. What we do then is identify projects. We have a contract with the Department of Treasury to make sure that what we said we were going to do, we do, and we get it into low-income communities. Once those projects are identified, then we work with the developers of the projects and potential investors to flow funds through the new markets tax credit structure to generate the credits and then get it to the business. So investors could be large national banks, global banks, or even community banks. We've worked with them on many occasions because they're interested in that project in their community. They could invest to get the tax credits on their income tax statement going forward over 7 years, and they can also very often make loans into the project. So you have banks involved. You can have subordinated debt sources, like one partner we've had commonly in the past is called Common Capital in Western Massachusetts, and they'll come in and work with the banks to help get that capital in there. So there's multiple sources, but the investors at the top are seeking in part that tax credit to help manage their return on investment. That's combined, and then it flows into the business. And the benefits to the business are, because that money, part of it comes in via the tax credit, it lowers the overall cost of funds. So a typical new markets deal size is probably between $8 and $20 million for a project. Let's just say the borrowing need was $10 million. The new markets tax credit could generate, after the closing costs, roughly $2 million that would flow in below any kind of senior debt, would essentially usually is close to 0% interest because that part is making its return on the tax credits. So the business can borrow, let's say, $10 million, but during that 7-year tax period, it would only be paying interest on roughly $8 million, and it would be interest only. And then at the end of that 7-year period, typically a good portion of that tax credit equity, it's called, can be left in the project because the investor has made a return from the tax credit. So lower cost of funds, interest only typically for 7 years, and equity-like money that can flow into the project. That's what motivates the businesses at the bottom, allows them to go forward and they otherwise might not. And then understanding the returns at the top of the stack, if you will, are what attracts that capital.
You had mentioned that in one of those steps is you identify projects. How do you go about identifying them, or do these people who are putting these projects together find you?
It works both ways. Now that the industry is roughly 10 years old, it's maturing, and people, developers and others learn about the new markets in the census tract that they might be looking at, and then what we do is run it through our triple bottom line screen. We have quite a bit of demand, and what we make sure we do is, at a minimum, hit those targeted census tracts, but we also, and the Department of Treasury encourages us, that you try and drive that tax credit into the hardest hit areas. So actually, if you look at the industry nationally, 80% of it are in census tracts that are what are known as higher distressed, or even the poverty rates might be 30%, or the unemployment rate might be 1.5 times. So that helps us narrow it down. And then we do site visits. We make sure we get to that community, and we start talking to the town fathers or local economic development groups, other community development groups like ours, to see what are the needs in that community. Is this project truly going to be helpful? And if it passes those tests and they have good relationships with the developers, then we're willing to go further with that in our due diligence.
You know, I got a couple of questions, but the first one, there was a company that was buying up a lot of property in Detroit, and then they were having a lot of their employees in the distressed areas, and having a lot of their employees now move into those areas. And I can't think of the guy's name. It was a major corporation. But he was going into the distressed areas, getting people from the areas now employed, but also they had to live in the area.
Right.
So it's almost a live, work, and play, but they turned the whole thing around. So that would be a situation that he probably got a major tax credit on that, something like that.
I know there are large sections of Detroit that qualify for new markets. I'm not familiar with that specific deal, but there's a group similar to ours called Invest Detroit that does use new markets, has been quite successful there, so there's probably a chance it was used. Again, we work with companies, for example, Commonwealth Dairy in Brattleboro, Vermont, didn't exist. They saw an opportunity in this Greek yogurt growth. They built a facility there, and then they were able to hire people from that local community. They hit their 5-year hiring goal in 2 years. Another example is in in Brunswick, Maine, the Naval Air Station was bracked. It was closed through the redevelopment of these air bases, and we were able to use new markets to attract a wound dressing company that was based out of Sweden. It's called Mölnlycke, and they located a manufacturing facility there. So while we didn't have people move into those communities, we helped with new job creation in those communities.
Wound dressing plant like gauze?
They are producing state-of-the-art wound dressing. It's actually
But like wound dressing, we're talking like for soldiers and things like that.
and in hospitals,
Okay.
it's a very sophisticated polyurethane that absorbs moisture, and they use it both pre and post-op in just about any kind of size absorbency that you can imagine, and they're number 2 in the world.
Wow.
So they had the opportunity to build in Finland or to build in the U.S. They moved their R&D here to the U.S. They built a state-of-the-art production facility, and they've actually since then expanded production.
Yeah, I've seen the product that.
That's
I'm
good news
not
on
sure.
all levels.
Yeah, I'm not
Countries
sure.
coming here to bring their manufacturing. That's huge.
It's state-of-the-art, too.
Right.
Yeah, now that's another thing. What about manufacturing?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that if someone wants to bring a manufacturing plant back to, let's say, a
Life.
place like Brockton, where that used to be a big manufacturing area for shoes. Now they bring a big manufacturing business back into that area. That creates so many more jobs for those people.
That would be a great example if it was in a low-income, qualifying census tract. Then it would be a great way to try and target capital using new markets tax credits. Most of the businesses we work with are operating companies, like the tissue company that I mentioned as a manufacturer.
That's what I mean. So, do they reach out to you and ask you where some of these towns might be, or these projects are going to be developed, so that they know? Could you find out for this? Do the site visit. Find out the new markets, and then let me know, and then I'll move over there and see it.
Yeah,
Is that kind of how it works?
Very often, the case in Brunswick was a nice way that all came together. Very often we're working with folks that are already based in the U.S.
Okay.
And they'll say, we're thinking of locating in Brockton. Do you know if this is a qualified census tract? And sometimes they're based on population. Sometimes it will be, and sometimes across the street it won't. But we can help them zero in on just where that would be.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not just the commercial real estate end of things. It's almost more of the revitalization of things, because it's not just bringing a building back; it's bringing a business back.
Absolutely. What we talk about are very often in rural areas, and it's true to some extent in places like Brockton, maybe places that grew up on the textile industry or in Maine shoemaking and textiles, shallow economies. And if one business drives the whole supply chain, and if that business goes down, everybody is in trouble, and sometimes for a very long time. So the new markets can be used to reutilize some of those buildings, but maybe help diversify those economies. We have one project in Michigan that is taking waste from a fiberboard plant that has a lot of wood in it and turning it into cellulosic ethanol and turning it into fuel. We worked with other ones that are using wood pellets for fuel. And this is a way to kind of diversify away from, say, a shrinking paper industry to more uses for those wood products, which then ties to where the truckers are, where the loggers are,
Right.
and others.
So you're not just lending money; you're doing a lot of the research as well.
Absolutely. We first of all, we don't lend. It comes through us. We're the intermediary.
Right.
But we help target it. But we know we're managing a portfolio now, and it's our responsibility over that 7 years to make sure that this program the project's in compliance on day 1 and right through day 7, because if it goes out of compliance, the investors lose all their tax credits. So we have quite a bit of responsibility, and we've built out a team that not only looks at how we close these deals, but how do we manage them during the 7-year period? How do we make sure that we get them refinanced at the end? We're very deeply involved on the economics, but also on that.
So it's not a one-shot deal for you. This
No.
is like a long-term relationship that you build.
We have skin. We have skin
Yeah.
in it, just like everybody else,
Right.
and that's what kind of makes it really interesting for us, is because we don't just land and then move out. We're involved during that whole period.
It sounds
So-
like a lot to tie together. Finding the right development for the right manufacturer, the social economy of just the community that surrounds it, and then also the environmental. And you said this all has to be done within 7 years. You have to monitor that every day in, day out, I'm sure.
We're watching it, and it is challenging, but we take this mission that we inherited from our parent, and that's the filter that we use. And we've done 80 projects now, so we're starting to feel like we got
Anything right in downtown Portland? Anything that is anything there that
in
got
Portland,
you
Maine?
guys started? Yes.
Sure. We did the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, which was, I think, the second or third deal that we did, and that is targeted at the Gulf of Maine, which supports about 25,000 people from Cape Cod to Massachusetts. It works with fishermen to do research, but it also works with the major research universities, and it studies things like, right now they're talking about shutting down the shrimp harvesting in the Gulf of Maine. So that's right there in Portland, and it's a building that wasn't there before that employs, I don't remember the exact number, but it's dozens of people.
Right.
And
I love
and
Portland. I go up there all the time.
Yeah, well, it's right on Commercial Street. You'll see.
Yeah, right. I know. It's right what you're saying, right by because we did the Seven Lighthouse tour through that area, so we get to see all that stuff. It's really cool.
And we've done another project in Portland where there was a special purpose built.
Oh.
Special.
Charlie just got a call.
Someone found a new development.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
There's a special purpose building that had been dark for 2 years because it was designed as an open market, and the HVAC wasn't right. Several developers that had turned over because they couldn't figure out how to make it work economically, and we were able to use the new markets to kind of scrub out those additional costs to turn it into Class A Gold LEED office space and
Wow.
retain a business.
Now, one of the things that I'm thinking in my head about is that all of these things sound great, but once you put all this into effect, and you have these people that are coming out of these low-income areas, is there some type of consideration to what type of education or trainings these people will have now?
Well, a couple thoughts come to mind. One is when I mentioned the workforce training initiatives, we have tried to help people be suitable right from the get-go to interview for these jobs. There's also a part of New Market that's called targeted populations where it's harder to do, but if it's not in the qualified census tract and you're willing to hire 60% of these folks from low income status, then you can target it that way. But another thing I should mention, Rick, which you reminded me of, the program itself has not been extended in Congress. We had an election last night. Everybody's trying to understand what's up here. And regardless of which way it went, it's been a program that's been supported on both sides. But because of the whole debate around tax reform, there are several programs, including New Markets, that haven't been extended. So we're hoping that it gets extended and by Congress in the lame duck session or beyond.
Well, this one makes sense, so maybe it won't.
You're not encouraging me right there. Although we do, know there is a lot of support there, and we're not going to be able to continue to do this kind of work if that's not renewed. So.
Yeah, no, that would be too bad. So if someone is interested in finding out more about the program, how would they get a hold of you, Charlie?
I can be reached at CEI Capital Management. Our phone number is 772-2886, and you can also get to us through the website of our parent, www.ceimaine.org, so CEIMAINE.org.
We appreciate you coming on
Yeah,
the
we
show.
definitely, for enlightening us on the New Markets tax credits.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we were speaking with Charlie Spies. He's a CEI. He's the CEO of CEI Capital Management. Thank you again, Charlie.
Thank
and
you.
we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
Rick Kaplan is right here on the Money Matters Radio Network.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we're coming to a close of another show. Actually, you know what? I haven't said in a while.
Another great show.
Another great show.
It's funny when you opened up the show today. I thought you were going to do it. I thought you were going to say, "I'm with Eric Wilson," and we got another great show for you. So if you
And we
would,
did have a great show.
We
Charlie,
did. Yeah, Charlie was really
Spies, he's,
very informative
yeah.
on.
They're doing a lot of good things, too.
They are. How they
Revitalizing a lot of these areas that have...
Have been challenged times. I like how he took your rundown and turned it into a challenge.
Challenge.
You know,
He
we were
said,
talking about branding.
I think what you said was challenge. So I think he.
I do. It's funny.
I think he heard challenge.
I was going to say he may have, because I believe what we were talking about branding earlier. That's what it is. It's changing the words, and to make it sound
challenging.
More, but put it in a more positive light, because anyway, he's doing great stuff, and what a good interview.
And, and I like that idea of revitalizing those areas.
Yeah, of course.
Because
we're only as strong as the weakest link.
It's bringing those people that getting better education. Now you have
job training.
You have job training. Now you have crime that will start falling.
Yeah,
because
they'll have its ripple effect. There'll be
Yeah.
plenty of ripple effects that go through. And
Yeah.
he was saying that, there's a 10-year study that they did. Obviously, he talked to us a little bit more offline, but there's so much stuff. If you are a developer, you're looking into these areas. You definitely want to give Charlie a call. He breaks it down and he keeps it in the layman terms.
That's right.
So he doesn't lose you.
Even we could understand.
Yeah, so we could follow, which was great. We really appreciated him, for lack of better terms, dumbing it down for the two of us.
Yeah.
But great interview today.
Very nice.
We had some big things coming up, though.
Yeah, we do.
That I want to talk about. We're going to be in November 19th. We'll be in Hartford, Connecticut. But if you're in the Boston area and you can't make it out to Hartford, honoring our heroes, the commercial real estate industry is putting on a great event in Boston, celebrating the police force and the Boston Police Fund in order to get a flak jacket, bulletproof vest, for lack of better terms, for each and every officer that they can.
I thought they already had those.
No, it's funny is that you think that they would have one per one, but that's obviously not the case. And if you saw the same thing with military, they don't have the funds to buy each and every one a bulletproof vest, and a lot of people go out in the line of duty and sacrifice for us without that. So honoring our heroes, you can check it out. You can go to most of the associations involved. IFMA's involved, IRM's involved, NEMA's involved, USGBC's involved. A lot of these companies that did it last year with the Journal. Again, are doing it again this year. And also, the IRM Awards dinner next week on November 13th. They're going to, elect their new officials. Colleen Costa is going to be the 2015
And I'd like to congratulate you, Eric, for getting an award.
Yes, we will. The Journal will be receiving an award for the work that we've done with IRM.
Well, you could have said, and I'd like to congratulate you, Rick, for getting one.
Well, yeah, I would, Rick. I'd like to congratulate you as well. But I was going to save my congratulations for November 13th when I talk about how much you've helped and support us and what we do. But we do a lot with IRM. We go to all their events. We love to attend and live tweet and try to bring their community even closer. And we've done and reached all the goals that we had for 2014, and I'm sure we'll have more for 2015.
We try to work with a lot of the association.
Right.
In,
well, we
in
try to
the
put
industry.
at least one representative on their committees, whether it be the media communications committee, it could be different chairs. So we've lucked out in that we've had,
and that's why
great
our
relationships.
Cocktails and Conversations with the association have
been
worked
so
very well.
Right, it was because of those relationships. And also a shout out November 6th. I know this will be the Thursday, although prior this week, Cornet New England's having their award show as well. Cornet Global New England. So I know the New England Real Estate Journal will be there as well. Julie Santos helps them out with their photos.
And actually, CCIM is also having a regional event in Boston on the 13th.
On the 13th, right? So
you can go to the CCIM
if you
website and you could find out more information about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of big things going on. This is the awards, and the IIDA had theirs, and Bragby, which we went to last year. The Prism Awards just happened. But so this is a big awards time, and also the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say the 13th for CCIM?
You may have, yes.
I meant NAOP.
NAOP's the 13th.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, everyone's getting ready for 2015 and scheduling out what they're going to do. And when you're doing that for yourselves in your office, I want everyone right now to save the date for January
29th at the Hyatt Regency in Boston.
And we're going to try to double up what we did last year.
It's going to be a great event.
It is. It's going to be another great event. We have a lot of great events.
We've had so many people that have benefited from our events. And I can't tell you the kind of response that we get after an event. As a matter of fact, we did one in Rhode Island. It was like the headline in the newsletter of one of the people that attended.
It was.
It was. It's a tremendous event that we put on.
If you're thinking networking event, there is no better because most of them are industry specific, and we luck out that we cover all of the industries, so you get to meet and greet those that you may not run into at your local association event, but you get the opportunity at this one event, 2 hours, 3 hours long. You get to meet everybody. And
Right.
usually most events only last 2 hours, maybe 3, but when there's 200, 250 people in a room, it's hard for you to get around and meet everybody in an hour. Because conversations last 5 to 7 minutes. And the better the relationship, the longer the conversation.
I can't tell you how many people I have talked to after our event have set up so many appointments that they go because the new relationships they build, they might not be directly tied to the person they met, but the person they met had tied them into someone that then reflects back to money.
Same industry.
So it's beneficial.
It's 6 degrees of separation from NEREJ. Because we're connected to everyone in all these different industries.
And
so
then why not bring them all together? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's why we hired you, Rick, back in 2014 to come up with these ideas. And you've put on great events for us, with the help of Megan O'Hara and Carlton Cooper. 2 shout-outs to some of those that really help us in our marketing of it, our bringing it together. And so we really like it. We really wanted to see you guys. All of our listeners, we'll see you in Hartford on November 19th.
So we'll see you in Hartford.
In Boston on 29th.
And we'll see you in Boston.
As we bring in the new year, 2015, you get to meet all of the newly imported and newly appointed presidents of each of these associations and their leadership
and let's kick off the 2015 year the right way. With cocktails and conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess, Eric, this deal is done.
They know what they're doing.
So that sounds like it's more than just a volunteer's position to do all those things for students.
Yes, we're using the same model in a lot of ways by getting site directors and volunteer coaches on those campuses who are Let's Get Ready alums to help our freshmen get through. But we're also, getting at them through Facebook, getting with them through different technology platforms to just keep them informed and say, hey, it's October. Are you ready for midterms? Hey, it's November's coming. What's going on for finals? What are you doing for break? And making sure that they know that there's someone on the other side that's there being a cheerleader, but also a resource. So whatever they need, whether it's I have questions about my financial aid or I'm really having a difficult time being away from home, we have people that are going to be there for you and be there to support you.
So it sounds more like they're counselors.
Exactly. So it's kind of a one-stop shop of you need it, we have it, and we're willing to give it to you.
It's kind of like the big brother for success.
Exactly. I like that, the big brother for success.
It's kind of like that. You're reaching out to someone who just went through that.
Well, next week, that's going to be their slogan.
I'm a slogan machine. That's what I get paid the big bucks for, Rick. But this sounds like a really successful program. And then when did this initiative start?
So the initiative started early last year with a very small pilot program, but this year we've been very fortunate to receive a pretty large grant to support our program, and we're going full force. So I'm up in New York, we have a college success director down here for our New England region, and we're going full steam ahead, getting some colleges on board to support students who are on those campuses, so starting some mentoring programs and really just reaching out to our students and letting them know, hey, we're still here, we're not going anywhere, as long as you need us, we're here for you.
Wow. I love this. I love Carlos. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna join this program.
You could come volunteer. We have a lot of students who want to do radio, so
nice.
that's one of the things we want to do. So we want to connect students with.
So do you think they could teach Eric something?
They'll probably walk me through more of that stuff than I can.
They can help you with your last names. I don't know.
Yes,
we could all work with each other.
I like it. It's all about the partnerships here.
Exactly.
I like this.
Give and take.
So if someone is in college, basically you're taking them over from that point. Let's Get Ready sort of gets them ready for the college.
And then they come to your part of the initiative.
So, we're even doing a step before that, making sure they get into college the right way, because you'd be surprised the number of students who get into college, but because they didn't fill out a form, because they didn't get a financial aid form in on time, because they didn't pick the right dorm, it prevents them from starting on time. So we're going to help them transition to college. So, hey, it's January. Have you filled out your FAFSA? It's February, you decide what school you're going to get into. You send your deposit, so really help them transition to college, so getting them there, and then once they're there, really taking over.
And what year is it they start? Is this like junior year in high school, or do they start sophomore year? Do you get a freshman? I mean, how early do you start with this program?
So the majority of the students who participate in the SAT College Access Program are college seniors.
Right, okay.
I'm high school seniors.
Right.
So that's the majority of our students, but we have some students who start their junior year. So what we're going to do is with those juniors, making sure that, what schools are you looking at? Can you afford that school? What are your grades? To make sure it's a good match. Because some students get into colleges, but they can't afford it, or it's a little, it doesn't have the resources that they need to be successful. So we really want to look at it. It's like, we just don't want you to go to any college because we want you to go to college. We want you to go to the college that you're going to be the most successful at.
Now, I know I have a son that's in college, and I don't know who preps them for the partying issue of college, because that's something that is an issue, really.
And that's what's great about what we're doing. It's not, college, I always tell my students, college is not from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. because you did that before. You've taken tests, you've written a paper, you've spoken to teachers. It's from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. What are you doing? What are the things that the time management? How are you operating on that campus? How are you building a network? So we're going to talk to them about partying, about building social capital, about networking, about everything they need outside the classroom. The classroom stuff is important. That's the meat and potatoes, but what you need in life is a lot of the stuff that goes out on side of the classroom. So we want to put that all together to make sure we're creating a holistic student, not just a super smart kid, not a kid who's just super social, but someone who can marry the two and really be successful in life.
Are we gonna hire this guy right now? I mean, he needs to be my introduction to all of our radio shows. I love this guy. I don't know what to do. That was amazing, just how you said that.
So Cal, is this part of your job recruiting people? Because I think you just recruited Eric.
I mean, listen, he's teaching kids how to be, not just how to handle college, but handle life in general. You're 19. That's the biggest thing you were saying with the partying is they don't make those decisions.
That's a big issue with college kids, because college kids go into college thinking, especially the first year, that all of a sudden they're free.
Yes, exactly. That's the hardest thing. How do you transition
and
to
then
that?
They don't do anything for school.
Right. And you go from one school where it's structured this way, and now you're in college life, and homework's really more on you. Not as much as, your teachers aren't checking it. They need you to make sure you're doing it if you're writing your essays. That's amazing stuff.
Thanks. What I love about the young people is that different from adults, they're very loyal at this age. And it's just like, if they believe in you and they know you believe in them, they're willing to do whatever you want them to do. And when it's, I want you to do this because I want you to be successful, half of the war is already taken care of. So it's really about, building those relationships and letting them understand, it's like, you might mess up, but we're here for you. But we're going to help you through it, but we're going to be real with you also. We're not just going to say, hey, it's okay. No, it's not okay, but this is how you bounce back from that.
It's just not the fluff. Sometimes you get the peanut butter.
Coming in here, I knew a little about this program from just what I read. And as we talk to more and more, I'm liking it more and more.
That's great.
This is an amazing program.
There's so many more things that are coming out about
then
what
then when we just researched the website, like this is some stuff this is really good stuff.
Great. Yeah.
I did too. We really appreciate you coming on, Carlos.
Appreciate
We wish
you
you
having us.
all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
And we're gonna have to connect on Facebook.
Definitely.
And we'll be right back on Money Matters Radio Network.
New England Real Estate Journal Radio.
And we're back on New England Real Estate Journal Radio. I'm Rick Kaplan with Eric Wilson, and we have sitting right next to us the one and only Richard Jimenez. He is the site director for the Let's Get Ready for Brown University.
Actually, nowadays I don't site direct anymore, but back in my college years, which was a year ago.
Congratulations for graduating.
Thank you. I just like saying that,
Yeah, right.
But, when I was in school, I site directed 2 different sites. One of them was the Providence site because I was a Brown student.
Right.
So, I got involved up here, and, it was a great experience. So that's what brings me here today.
Nice.
So what did you, when you graduated Brown, what did you major in?
History.
History.
History,
So
wow.
that's coming in handy now.
Yeah, I'm remembering everything, all of my own history.
All the history.
And now I know how to do it.
Were you a volunteer while you were at Brown for this program? Or just a site director?
I was a site director, right.
And what does a site director do?
So the site director is essentially in charge of the particular program. The way Let's Get Ready is structured is we have dozens of programs across the Northeast, across New England, and each site is a semester long, and we do our own recruitment and our own like staff maintenance. So we keep track of the students and the volunteers. So the site director is the one that's in charge, essentially the head honcho on the ground.
Oh, so you're coordinating between the volunteers and the students, and
Nice.
also recruiting on those volunteers.
Right.
Wow.
So we're doing everything that has to be done on the ground.
That's a pretty hefty job for
Yeah.
a college student.
Right.
I gotta
And-
say, it was, in retrospect, it didn't seem so bad, but in the moment, especially when things were needing to be handled,
Yeah.
you could feel like your collar get a little tight and things get a little sweaty, but when you're in charge of the program, you just have to be on top of it. So it was such a great experience to have to be on top of things.
And how did you get that? Like, how did you become the site director? Were you already a volunteer before that, or just?
Well, even before that, I was actually a student for Let's Get Ready.
Really, you were a student in this process. Then you became a site director when you went to school.
So
Wow.
back, 5 years now?
Okay.
5 years ago, I was a high school student looking to get SAT prep assistance. Because I didn't have a lick of any prep.
Okay.
And my sister actually got the site director position.
Oh.
So she recruited me into